Up in the middle of the night to a masked man standing at the foot of your bed. He ties you up, he whispers terrifying threats, and you realize, at that moment, that your life will never be the same again. This nightmare became reality for dozens of families in California during the 1970s and 80s, and behind all these attacks was one man, Joseph James DeAngelo. Today we're going to dive deep into his shocking story, how he evaded capture for decades, and how he was finally brought to justice after more than 40 years. Joseph James DeAngelo was born in 1945 in New York. His family moved to California when he was still a kid. Growing up, people described him as quiet, but also troubled. As a teenager, he witnessed violence at home. Some reports suggest his father was abusive, which might have played a role in shaping his dark side. After high school, DeAngelo joined the Navy and served during the Vietnam War. When he came back, he studied criminal justice at Sacramento State University and eventually worked as a police officer in 2 different small California towns. At first glance, he looked like a normal guy. He was married, had children, worked steady jobs, and even did grocery shopping like everyone else. But beneath that ordinary life, he was hiding a horrific secret. DeAngelo's crime spree began in 1974 in Visalia, California, where he became known as the Visalia Ransacker. At first, he just burglarized homes. He would break in when no one was home, steal small items, move things around to mess with the owner's minds, and sometimes take souvenirs. But it didn't take long before his crimes escalated. In 1976, he moved north to Sacramento and became known as the East Area Rapist. This time, he began breaking into homes while people were inside. He would stalk neighborhoods, watch families for days, and learn their routines. Once he picked a target, he struck at night. He would wear a ski mask and gloves, carry a gun or a knife, and break in while his victims were asleep. If there was a couple, he would tie up the man and place dishes or cups on his back, threatening that if he heard them move, he would kill them both. Then he would assault the woman, sometimes for hours. The fear in California was overwhelming. People started sleeping with guns, installing new locks, and getting guard dogs. Neighborhood watch groups exploded overnight. In total, he committed at least 50 sexual assaults during this period. In the late 1970s, DeAngelo's crimes grew even darker. He began killing his victims, and his new nickname became the Original Night Stalker. From 1979 to 1986, he murdered at least 13 people in Southern California, including couples in their own homes. It took years for investigators to realize that the Visalia Ransacker, East Area Rapist, and Original Night Stalker were all the same man. At the time, different jurisdictions didn't always share information, and there were no DNA databases. During this time, DeAngelo was living a seemingly normal life. He worked as a truck mechanic, went to his daughter's soccer games, and complained to neighbors about noise. But at night, he was a completely different person. A violent, cruel predator. Victims' families were left devastated and terrified. Survivors described him as methodical and patient, but also incredibly cruel. He would whisper threats in the dark and pretend to leave the house only to come back and scare them even more. Many survivors have shared that even after 40 years, they still sleep with lights on and have trouble feeling safe anywhere. So, how did he get away with this for so long? The main reason was the lack of technology. In the 70s and 80s, DNA testing was not what it is today. Police also didn't always share details between counties, so connections weren't made quickly. Plus, DeAngelo knew how police worked. He was one of them at one point, which helped him avoid leaving clues. When he was finally fired from the police department in 1979 for shoplifting dog repellent and a hammer, no one suspected he was a serial predator. He simply faded into civilian life. Everything changed in the early 2000s. As DNA technology advanced, investigators started linking old crimes together using evidence left at crime scenes. They realized that the same person committed the East Area Rapist and Original Night Stalker crimes, but even with this discovery, they didn't have a name. Then came the breakthrough. In 2018, detectives uploaded the unknown killer's DNA profile to a genealogy website, the kind that people use to learn about their ancestry. They didn't find DeAngelo directly, but they found distant relatives. Using family trees and public records, they slowly narrowed down their list. Finally, they landed on Joseph James DeAngelo. In April 2018, investigators secretly took DNA from his trash, a tissue he had thrown away. When they compared it to the crime scene samples, it was a match. On April 24, 2018, DeAngelo was arrested at his home in Citrus Heights, California. He was 72 years old. Neighbors were shocked. They described him as an angry old man who yelled at people, but no one imagined he was the Golden State Killer. In 2020, DeAngelo pleaded guilty to 13 counts of murder and 13 counts of kidnapping. He also admitted to dozens of sexual assaults that were beyond the statute of limitations. During his sentencing, victims and family members of those he hurt finally had a chance to speak directly to him. They described the lifelong trauma and pain he caused. Some spoke through tears, others shouted at him, but DeAngelo sat there quietly, pretending to be weak and frail. In the end, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His arrest was a huge relief for many people. Survivors finally had answers. and communities that had lived in fear for decades finally had closure. Many experts say D'Angelo's ability to seem normal is what helped him avoid detection. He was controlling, careful, and calculated. He planned his crimes like military operations and left almost no trace behind. His story is also a chilling reminder of how monsters can hide in plain sight. Today, D'Angelo is serving his sentence in prison. He will die behind bars, finally facing the consequences for his years of terror. His case also changed the way investigators use DNA. The method of using genealogy websites to catch criminals became widely known after his arrest. It showed that even decades-old cases can be solved, giving hope to other families still waiting for answers.
June 2001, the world was shocked by a horrifying story out of Texas. A mother named Andrea Yates calmly called 911 and said she needed police to come to her house. When officers arrived, what they found was something no one could ever forget. Inside the house, 5 young children, all under the age of 8, were dead. Their own mother had drowned them in the bathtub, one by one. This is the true story of Andrea Yates, who she was, what led to this tragedy, and what happened after one of the most heartbreaking cases in American history. Andrea Yates was born in 1964 in Houston, Texas. She was the youngest of 5 children. In school, she was quiet and smart. She graduated high school as class valedictorian and even became a registered nurse. In 1989, Andrea met a man named Russell "Rusty" Yates. The two got married in 1993. From the outside, their life looked normal. They were deeply religious, didn't believe in birth control, and planned to have a large family. Soon the kids started coming, one after another. By the year 2000, Andrea and Rusty had 5 children: Noah, John, Paul, Luke, and Mary. The youngest, Mary, was just 6 months old. Andrea stopped working to take care of the kids full-time. The family lived in a small trailer for years and later moved into a house. But behind closed doors, Andrea was struggling. She suffered from severe postpartum depression, which is a form of depression some women get after giving birth. In Andrea's case, it was much worse. She started having hallucinations, hearing voices, and believed that television messages were meant for her. At one point, she held a knife to her neck and begged her husband to let her die. In 1999, after the birth of their 4th child, Andrea had a full mental breakdown. She was hospitalized multiple times, prescribed antidepressants and antipsychotic drugs, and even diagnosed with postpartum psychosis, a rare and serious condition. Doctors warned Rusty that Andrea should not have more children. But in 2000, she became pregnant again with their 5th child, Mary. After Mary was born, Andrea's condition got worse. She became more withdrawn, stopped eating, and stopped talking at times. She felt she was a bad mother and believed she was going to hell. Her doctor changed her medication and urged close supervision. But just weeks before the tragedy, Andrea was taken off her meds and left alone with the children for long periods of time. On the morning of June 20th, 2001, Rusty left for work around 9 a.m. Andrea waited until he was gone. Then she filled the bathtub with water. One by one, she brought in her children. She started with 3-year-old Paul, then 2-year-old Luke, followed by 5-year-old John. She drowned them all. Then she drowned 6-month-old Mary and placed her body in the arms of 7-year-old Noah, who was the last to die. When Noah saw his baby sister in the tub, he ran. But Andrea caught him, dragged him back, and drowned him too. After all 5 children were dead, Andrea called 911 and told the operator she needed police. When the police arrived, she calmly confessed, saying she had killed her children. She told them she did it because she believed she was a bad mother and that her children were going to grow up and go to hell. She thought killing them would save them. Andrea's arrest made headlines across the country. People were shocked, horrified, and confused. How could a mother do something like this? Some people saw her as evil. Others believed she was mentally ill and needed help, not punishment. Her trial began in 2002. Andrea's lawyers argued that she was insane at the time of the killings and that her actions were the result of severe mental illness. They said she had lost touch with reality. But the prosecution argued that she knew what she was doing and that she waited until she was alone with the kids to act. They pointed out that she had called the police herself, proof, they said, that she understood right from wrong. In the end, the jury found her guilty of murder. She was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 40 years. But the case wasn't over yet. In 2005, Andrea's conviction was overturned. Why? Because it turned out that one of the prosecution's expert witnesses gave false testimony during the trial. A new trial was ordered. In 2006, Andrea went back to court. This time, the jury found her not guilty by reason of insanity. She was sent to a mental health hospital instead of prison, where she remains to this day. Andrea's case changed the way people think about mental illness and motherhood. It sparked national conversations about postpartum psychosis and how the healthcare system handles mothers who are struggling. Today, Andrea lives quietly in a mental facility in Texas. She is said to be stable and deeply regrets what happened. She spends her time doing art and helping with crafts. She does not seek release and has said she feels it is better for her to remain hospitalized. Her husband, Rusty, eventually divorced Andrea, but said he still believes she was not in her right mind and that she loved their children deeply. The Andrea Yates case is a heartbreaking reminder of what can happen when severe mental illness goes untreated or misunderstood. It also shows the importance of listening to medical professionals, understanding postpartum mental health, and making sure mothers get the help they need before it's too late. 5 innocent children lost their lives, and a mother lost hers in a different way. There are no winners in this story, only sadness, confusion, and lessons to be learned.
Dennis Nilsen was one of the most disturbing serial killers in British history. He seemed like a quiet man, polite and normal. But behind closed doors, he lived with the dead. For years, no one knew what was really happening inside his small London apartment. But when police finally uncovered the truth, they found something horrifying. Bodies hidden in closets, under floorboards, and even flushed down the toilet. This is the chilling story of Dennis Nilsen, also known as the Muswell Hill murderer. Dennis Nilsen was born in 1945 in Scotland. His childhood was tough. His parents fought a lot and divorced when he was young. He was very close to his grandfather, who died suddenly when Dennis was just 6. That moment changed him deeply. He was confused by death, and some believe it was the beginning of his obsession. As a teenager, Dennis realized he was gay. In those days, it was hard to be open about that in the UK. He kept his feelings secret, which made him feel even more alone. Later, he joined the army and worked as a cook. He was quiet and neat, always doing his job well. After the army, Dennis moved to London and worked in different jobs, including as a police officer and a civil servant. To others, he seemed like just another lonely man living in a small flat. But inside, he was fighting dark thoughts. In 1978, something inside him snapped. That year, he met a young man at a pub, brought him home, and ended up killing him. His name was Stephen Holmes, and he was only 14 years old. Dennis didn't plan it. He just didn't want the boy to leave. That became his pattern. He would go to bars, pick up men, usually homeless runaways or people who wouldn't be missed, and invite them home. Once they were there, he'd strangle or drown them, then keep their bodies for days, even weeks. Dennis didn't kill out of rage. He killed because he was afraid of being alone. He said he wanted company, and that once his victims were dead, they couldn't leave him. He'd dress them, talk to them, even sleep beside them. Some he'd bathe and pose like they were still alive. After a while, the bodies would start to smell. That's when Dennis would try to get rid of them. At first, he buried body parts in his garden. When he moved to an apartment without a yard, he started cutting the bodies up and flushing the pieces down the toilet or burning them in a fire. Between 1978 and 1983, Dennis Nilsen killed at least 12 people, maybe more. Many victims were never identified. He didn't keep trophies or photos. His memory was his record. So how did he finally get caught? In February 1983, a plumber was called to Dennis's building. The drains were blocked. When the plumber opened the pipes, he found something strange, what looked like chunks of meat and bones. He took a closer look and realized they might be human. The police were called. When they arrived at Dennis's flat, he didn't deny anything. In fact, he calmly said, "It's a long story. You'll want to see the rest." Then he showed them body parts in plastic bags, a head in the closet, and bones hidden around the house. He confessed to killing 15 or 16 men. The officers were shocked. They had never seen anything like it. At his trial later that year, Dennis claimed he wasn't a bad person. He said he just didn't want to be alone. His defense tried to argue that he was insane, but the jury didn't agree. In November 1983, Dennis Nilsen was found guilty of 6 counts of murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. He was sentenced to life in prison, with a recommendation that he never be released. He served his sentence quietly, writing in his cell and even publishing a memoir that was later banned. In 2018, he died in prison at age 72 from complications after surgery. The Dennis Nilsen case shocked the UK. It wasn't just the number of victims. It was the cold, calm way he talked about what he did. He showed little emotion, even when describing terrible details. Many people criticized the police for not catching him sooner. Some of his victims had escaped and reported him, but they weren't believed. Others said the police didn't take the cases seriously because the victims were gay or homeless. After the case, there were changes in how missing persons cases were handled, especially for vulnerable people. The apartment where he lived was destroyed. People didn't want to live in a place with that kind of past. To this day, his story is one of the darkest in British criminal history. Some compared him to America's Jeffrey Dahmer. Like Dahmer, Nilsen kept his victims close even after death. They both struggled with identity, loneliness, and had a chilling calmness about their crimes. But Nilsen never showed deep regret. He said he was sorry, but he never seemed truly broken by what he had done. His story became the subject of books, documentaries, and a TV drama called Des, starring David Tennant. It reminded people that even someone who seems quiet and harmless can hide a very dark side. Dennis Nilsen didn't kill out of hate or anger. He killed because he wanted control, company, and quiet. That's what makes his crimes so chilling. There was no rage, just cold routine. It also reminded people how important it is to listen to victims, especially those who don't have power or money. Some of the men he killed had no homes, no families, and no one looking for them. And for years, that allowed him to keep going. In the end, a blocked drain solved the mystery. Something so ordinary led to the discovery of something so terrifying. The story of Dennis Nilsen is a reminder that evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like a lonely man in a small flat, just trying to make conversation.
Iman Nasir was only 17 years old when her life changed forever. She had just become a mother and was living in Openshaw, a quiet neighborhood in Greater Manchester. She was trying to adjust to motherhood, taking care of her 5-month-old baby and moving forward with her life. But on one terrifying afternoon, everything fell apart. On that day, someone she used to trust came to her home. It was her ex-boyfriend, Rhett Carty Shaw. He was also 17 at the time and the father of her baby. Iman let him in, not expecting what was about to happen. What followed was a violent attack that nearly killed her. Rhett brought a knife with him. As soon as he got inside, he started stabbing Iman. She tried to fight him off, but he kept going. He stabbed her multiple times, hit her, and left her badly hurt on the floor. Her bathroom became a crime scene. But what shocked people even more was the reason behind the attack. Rhett wasn't acting alone. His new girlfriend, Sarah Muhammad, who later changed her name to Kiro Mori Akihiro, had been sending him messages encouraging him to do it. Over 50 messages were found where Sarah pushed Rhett to attack Iman. She told him to hurry up, to do it quickly, and even demanded proof that it had been done. This wasn't just jealousy. It was a cold, calculated plan. Sarah felt threatened by Iman's connection to Rhett, since they shared a child. She wanted to remove Iman from the picture completely. The plan was simple, but brutal. Rhett was to kill Iman and prove it to Sarah. And he nearly succeeded. Iman somehow survived the stabbing. She was rushed to the hospital where doctors worked to save her. She suffered serious injuries, had to undergo surgery, and needed time to recover both physically and emotionally. But she made it through. The case quickly made headlines. People couldn't believe that 2 teenagers could plan something so violent. A jealous girlfriend and a young father turning on the mother of his own child. The public was horrified. In court, the details became even more disturbing. Rhett admitted to the attack. Sarah was charged with helping him plan it and encouraging the violence. Both were found guilty. Rhett was convicted of attempted murder and possession of a weapon. Sarah was convicted of encouraging and assisting the crime. They were both sentenced to 16 years in prison. The judge in the case said the two acted like selfish narcissists, thinking only of themselves. He lifted the reporting restrictions because he believed the public had a right to know who they were and what they had done. Usually, people under 18 can't be named in court. But in this case, the judge made an exception because of how serious the crime was. During the trial, messages between Rhett and Sarah were shown in court. They were disturbing, full of threats and pressure. Sarah kept telling Rhett to go through with it, to stop wasting time, to prove he loved her. It was clear that she was controlling and manipulative. And Rhett followed through. Iman later spoke out about the attack. She said that Rhett no longer looked like himself that day. She described how terrifying it was, how helpless she felt, and how much pain she was in. She also said that looking at her son reminds her of Rhett every day. That makes it harder to heal. But despite everything, Iman is strong. She's doing her best to move forward. She says this is her time to shine. She wants to return to her studies and maybe one day join the police force. She refuses to let this horrible experience define her. The case raised a lot of questions about teen relationships, jealousy, and how social media and private messages can lead to dangerous outcomes. It also showed how important it is to take threats seriously, even when they come from young people. Rhett and Sarah are now behind bars, serving long sentences. They'll be adults when they get out, but they'll carry this crime with them forever. The law made it clear. Even if you didn't hold a knife, encouraging someone to commit violence can lead to the same punishment. What happened to Iman could have ended her life. But instead, she turned her pain into strength. She's becoming a voice for other young women, especially teen mothers, who face challenges, fear, and danger from people they once trusted. She wants people to understand how serious domestic violence can be, even in young relationships. She hopes her story will stop others from going down the same path. The judge in the case said the messages between Rhett and Sarah were full of cruelty and obsession. They didn't just plan a violent act. They tried to destroy someone's life. But they failed. Because Iman survived. And now, she's telling her story. Stories like this remind us how quickly things can turn when jealousy, manipulation, and violence mix. But they also show us the power of survival. Iman Nasir is a survivor. She didn't choose to become one, but she is. and her strength is inspiring others.
If there's one message from this case, it's this: violence has no place in love. No one should ever be hurt because of jealousy or control, and no one should stay silent when they see the signs. If you or someone you know is in a dangerous relationship, speak up. Get help. You are not alone. Iman's story is hard to hear, but it's one that needs to be told, because someone, somewhere, might need to hear it today. Brian Cohey Jr. was just 19 years old, a college student, smart, quiet, no criminal record. On the surface, he looked like the kind of kid with a bright future ahead of him. But in March 2021, something horrifying shattered that image. A man, hiking near a popular trail in Grand Junction, Colorado, stumbled across something disturbing. Something no one ever expects to find. A severed human hand. The police responded immediately. What they uncovered was even more terrifying. Human remains, carefully dismembered, wrapped in plastic bags, and scattered across the area. A torso, legs, body parts that told a story no one wanted to hear. This wasn't a wild animal attack. It wasn't an accident. It was methodical. Someone had murdered a person, and then cut the body into pieces. The victim was soon identified: 47-year-old Randall Raymond. He had no enemies. He was experiencing homelessness and was known to many locals. Quiet, harmless, vulnerable. Someone had targeted him. Investigators reviewed surveillance footage and found a vehicle parked near where the remains were discovered. That car led them to a suburban home, to a quiet teenager, Brian Cohey Jr. When police arrived, Brian let them in. Calm, cooperative, no signs of panic. But what officers found inside his room would haunt them. In his bedroom closet was a backpack. Inside, more body parts. A human head, a severed hand. The saw used for the dismemberment? Still there, still stained with blood. His shoes were soaked in it. And yet, Brian just sat there, silent, flat, emotionless. When detectives questioned him, he confessed, coldly. He said he had fantasized about killing someone for years, that he wanted to know what it felt like. He described how he chose Randall because he thought no one would care if he disappeared. Brian admitted he lured him in, murdered him, brought the body home, and spent hours cutting it apart. He showed no remorse, no second thoughts. Even more disturbing, he said he planned to kill again. This wasn't about rage or revenge. This was about control, curiosity, a desire to kill, just because. Investigators searched his devices. What they found was chilling. Searches like how to get away with murder, how long do body parts take to decompose, and graphic, disturbing videos related to death and dismemberment. This wasn't a sudden snap. It was a process, a twisted evolution. Psychologists who examined Brian described him as having psychopathic traits: no empathy, no emotional depth, no guilt. He wasn't delusional. He wasn't hearing voices. He knew what he was doing was wrong. He just didn't care. In court, Brian Cohey Jr. pleaded guilty to first-degree murder, abuse of a corpse, and tampering with physical evidence. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. He'll never be free again. Randall's family spoke through tears. They remembered him as kind, a man who struggled, yes, but who deserved to live. They were heartbroken, knowing his final moments were filled with fear, pain, and cruelty. Brian's own family was devastated. His parents had no idea, no warning signs. He wasn't violent, he wasn't isolated, he was just normal. Until he wasn't. And that's what makes this case so terrifying. We expect evil to look a certain way, but sometimes it hides behind a calm face, a polite smile, and a quiet voice. The truth is, monsters don't always live under beds. Sometimes they sit next to you in class. They check out groceries next to you. They walk the same sidewalks. And they're waiting. This case reminds us how fragile the line between ordinary and unimaginable really is. Could anything have stopped him? Could someone have noticed? Or was he just that good at hiding it? In the end, we may never have all the answers, but we can ask the hard questions. We can be more aware. We can check in with the people around us. And we must remember that vulnerability should never be a death sentence. Randall Raymond didn't deserve what happened to him. And as for Brian Cohey Jr., he was a kid with a mind capable of terrifying darkness. A reminder that true horror doesn't always come from the shadows. Sometimes it comes with a knock on the door. This is the story of Cameron Herron, a young man who made one terrible decision and changed many lives forever. It happened in Tampa, Florida in May 2018. Cameron Herron was 18 years old. He had just graduated from high school. On that day, he was driving his Ford Mustang. It was a fast, powerful car, a gift from his parents. He was with his older brother and they were driving down a busy road. Next to them was another car, a friend. The two cars started to race. They were speeding down Bayshore Boulevard, a road near houses, shops, and sidewalks. They were going over 100 miles per hour, that's more than 160 kilometers per hour. The speed limit there was only 45 miles per hour. At the same time, a young mother named Jessica Reisinger Robinalt was crossing the road. She was pushing her 1-year-old daughter Lilia in a stroller. They were visiting from Ohio. Cameron's car hit them. Jessica was killed instantly. Baby Lilia was rushed to the hospital, but sadly, she died the next day. It was a heartbreaking moment. A family was destroyed. Cameron Herron was arrested and charged with vehicular homicide. That means causing death by reckless driving. The court found that Cameron had been racing, speeding, and driving dangerously. In April 2021, Cameron was sentenced to 24 years in prison, 9 years for the death of Jessica, 15 years for the death of her daughter Lilia. He cried in court. His family was shocked, but the judge said, "It's a message to others. Street racing kills." After the sentence, Cameron's case went viral on the internet. Many people, especially on TikTok, made videos of him. Some said he looked too good looking for prison. Others felt bad for him. But many people also said, what about the mother and child who died? The case led to changes. In Florida and other places, laws became stricter against street racing. Police started checking more, fines became higher, and young drivers were warned. Racing is not a game. On real roads, real people get hurt. Jessica's family said no amount of time in prison will bring their loved ones back. They just hope other people learn from this tragedy. Cameron Herron made one bad choice, and it changed everything. 2 lives were lost. 1 life is now in prison. So remember this. Think before you drive. Don't race. Don't speed. Life is too precious.
This is the heartbreaking story of Sana Yusuf, a young girl, full of life and dreams, who was taken away too soon, all because she said no. Sana Yusuf was a 17-year-old TikTok star from Islamabad, Pakistan. She had more than 1 million followers on social media. Her videos spoke about culture, women's rights, and education. People loved her for her courage and creativity. On the night of June 2nd, 2025, Sana had just celebrated her 17th birthday. But that night turned tragic. A man came to her house in Sector G, 13/1. It was someone she knew. He knocked, walked inside, and then something terrible happened. He pulled out a gun, walked into the room, and shot Sana twice. She died on the spot. The man then tried to take her phone and destroy evidence. But police were called quickly. Within 20 hours, police arrested a man named Umar Hayat, who was 22 years old. He had been messaging Sana for a long time. She had rejected his advances again and again, but he couldn't accept that. So instead of walking away, he chose violence. Umar confessed to the murder. Police found the gun and Sana's damaged phone. He was charged with murder and sent to jail. The law may punish him, but Sana's life is gone forever. Her death shocked the whole country. People were angry, sad, heartbroken. Online, the hashtag #Justice for Sana Yusuf started trending. People demanded justice and change. Women's rights groups said this wasn't just about one girl. It was about every woman who says no and is punished for it. They said, this is what happens when men are taught they own women, when boys are told they can't take rejection. Sana was buried in her family's hometown in Upper Chitral. Her father said she was strong and kind. She stood up for what she believed in. She spoke about women's rights and lost her life for it. Sana's story is not just a headline, it is a wake-up call. We must teach respect. We must protect our girls. And we must speak up. So no more voices are silenced for simply saying no. Rest in peace, Sana Yusuf. We will not forget you. Say no to violence. Say yes to justice.
In January 2023, a 19-year-old girl named Alexi Trevizo walked into a hospital in Artesia, New Mexico, saying she had back pain. But within a few hours, a shocking discovery was made. A newborn baby was found dead in a trash can inside the hospital bathroom. This case became national news, and today we're going to explain the whole story in simple words, from the hospital visit to the legal battle and what's happening now. Alexi Trevizo was a high school senior living in a quiet town. She was a cheerleader and known to be a good student, but she had a secret. She was pregnant, and according to reports, nobody knew. Not her family, not her school, not even her close friends. On January 27th, Alexi and her mom went to Artesia General Hospital late at night. She said she had serious lower back pain. Doctors gave her painkillers, including morphine, and ran some tests. Around 1 a.m., her test results came back. Alexi was pregnant. But instead of informing her clearly or treating it as an emergency, hospital staff continued giving her medication, even though they now knew she was pregnant. Shortly after, Alexei went into the hospital bathroom, alone. She stayed there for a long time. When staff entered later to clean, they noticed something was wrong. The trash can was heavy and leaking. Inside the bag was a newborn baby boy. He was not breathing. He was wrapped in plastic, and it was too late to save him. The police were called. Alexei admitted she gave birth in the bathroom and didn't know what to do. She said she panicked. But the autopsy found the baby had taken breaths. That meant he was born alive. Cause of death? Suffocation. It was ruled a homicide. In May 2023, Alexei was arrested. She was charged with first-degree murder and tampering with evidence. But she didn't stay in jail long. She was released on bond and returned home to wait for trial. Alexei's lawyer says this is not murder. He says the hospital failed her. They gave her strong drugs after knowing she was pregnant. They let her go to the bathroom alone even though she could have been in labor. Her lawyer even filed a lawsuit against the hospital, blaming them for the baby's death. The hospital hasn't said much publicly, but in legal documents they claim they followed normal procedures. Still, people are asking, why was she alone in the bathroom? Why was she given morphine after a positive pregnancy test? Here's where the case took a big turn. Alexei gave a statement on video while in the hospital. Prosecutors wanted to use it as evidence, but her lawyers said, that's private, she was speaking to doctors. The judge agreed. That video and some other evidence was blocked from the trial. Prosecutors appealed that decision, so now the case is on hold while a higher court decides should that video be allowed or not. Online, people are divided. Some say Alexei should go to prison for life. Others say she was just a scared teen who didn't know what to do. Some believe she tried to hide the baby. Others think she was in shock. The story has gone viral, with millions of views, comments, and debates. So where is the case now? Alexei is not in jail, but she's still facing murder charges. The trial is on pause, waiting for a final decision on what evidence can be used. She's also still suing the hospital in a separate case. The criminal trial may begin later in 2025, depending on the court's ruling. This case is sad. A baby died. A young woman is now facing prison, and a hospital is being blamed for not doing more. Was it murder? Was it panic? Or was it a failure of the whole system? We don't know yet. But one thing is clear. This story is far from over. On May 13, 2025, a young woman named Valeria Marquez was doing what she loved, going live on TikTok from her beauty salon. She smiled, held a pink stuffed toy, and talked with her viewers. But moments later, her life ended in front of the camera. She was shot and killed, live on stream. This is the full story of Valeria Marquez, who she was, what happened, and what's being done now. Valeria Marquez was just 23 years old. She was a beauty influencer, model, and businesswoman from Guadalajara, Mexico. She had over 200,000 followers on TikTok and Instagram. People loved her for her makeup tips, fashion style, and bright personality. In 2024, she opened her own salon called Blossom the Beauty Lounge in the city of Zapopan, near Guadalajara. Valeria had a big dream: to build her brand and help others feel confident. The evening of May 13th, Valeria was live streaming from her salon. She was smiling, chatting with her viewers, and holding a pink toy. But something felt strange. Earlier that day, two men had come to her salon pretending to deliver a gift. They asked questions. Valeria felt uneasy. While live, she said something that shook her viewers. "They're coming for me. Maybe they're going to kill me." Moments later, a masked man walked into the salon. He asked, "Are you Valeria?" Then he shot her multiple times in the chest and the head, while her stream was still running. Her assistant stopped the stream quickly, but it was already too late. Valeria died right there in her own salon. Police arrived soon after. They confirmed that Valeria had been shot by a man who escaped on a motorcycle. Surveillance footage showed him arriving with a helmet and mask. Authorities said it looked like a planned hit, a murder that was organized ahead of time. The case was labeled as femicide, the killing of a woman because she is a woman, a major problem in Mexico. The news shocked people across Mexico and around the world. Her followers were heartbroken. Many people posted tributes, shared her videos, and demanded justice. A hashtag began trending, Justicia para Valeria, justice for Valeria. This case became more than just one crime. It became a symbol of how unsafe many women feel, even in their own workplaces. Soon, rumors started online. Some people claimed Valeria had ties to organized crime or that her salon was somehow involved. Others believed her death was connected to a cartel hit. But local prosecutors said clearly there is no proof that Valeria was linked to any criminal group. They said 3 different leads were being investigated, but no clear motive had been confirmed. Sadly, Valeria's murder was not rare. In Mexico, an average of 10 women are killed every day. The government promised a full investigation. The governor of the state of Jalisco said Valeria's case was a priority. Police began analyzing video footage, phone records, and any possible threats. By June 2025, no suspects had been arrested, but authorities said they were making progress. Police are still searching for the man who pulled the trigger and anyone who may have helped him. Her family has remained mostly private, but her friends and followers continue speaking out, hoping she won't be forgotten. This is the story of a quiet man who lived in a small farmhouse in Wisconsin, but behind his walls, he hid some of the most shocking and disturbing secrets in American history. His name was Ed Gein, and he became the inspiration for horror characters like Norman Bates, Leatherface, and Buffalo Bill. Let's break down what really happened. Ed Gein was born in 1906 in a small town called Plainfield, Wisconsin. He lived on a farm with his parents and older brother. His father was an alcoholic. His mother, Augusta, was extremely strict and very religious. She taught Ed that the world was full of sin, especially women. Ed was shy, quiet, and didn't have many friends. After his father died, he stayed on the farm with his mom. When his brother died in a strange fire and later his mom passed away in 1945, Ed was all alone. That's when things started to change. After his mother's death, Ed became even more isolated. He locked up her room, keeping it untouched, like a shrine. He only used a small part of the house to live in. The rest was filled with trash, dust, and something much worse. Ed began visiting graveyards at night. He later admitted that he dug up bodies, mostly women, and brought them home. Why? He said he missed his mother and wanted to become more like her. On November 16, 1957, a local woman named Bernice Warden went missing from her hardware store. People became suspicious because Ed was seen at the store that morning. He was also the last name in the sales receipt book. Police went to Ed's house. What they found was something they could never forget. Inside Ed's farmhouse, police found Bernice Warden's body, hanging in a shed like a deer. But that was just the beginning. They found bowls made from human skulls, a chair covered in human skin, and even a face mask made from a woman's face. There was a belt made of nipples, a lampshade made of skin, and boxes of body parts. The truth was out. Ed Gein was not just a killer. He was a grave robber and body collector. Ed admitted to killing 2 women, Bernice Warden and Mary Hogan, a tavern owner who disappeared 3 years earlier. He also confessed to digging up graves of recently buried women who reminded him of his mother. He said he wanted to make a woman suit so he could become his mother, wear her skin, live her life. These were the words of a man with deep mental illness. In 1957, Ed Gein was found mentally insane and sent to a mental hospital instead of prison. Later, in 1968, he was put on trial again. He was found guilty of murder, but still declared legally insane, so he stayed in the hospital for the rest of his life. He died in 1984 at the age of 77. Even though Ed Gein only admitted to killing 2 people, the way he treated the bodies shocked the world. He's known as one of the most disturbing criminals in American history. The Ed Gein case is not just about murder. It's about loneliness, mental illness, and a man who was never treated before it was too late. He lived alone, obsessed with his dead mother, and slowly created a world of horror behind closed doors. To this day, people still talk about what was found inside that farmhouse, and even now, Ed Gein's name sends chills down people's spines. What do you think of the Ed Gein case? Was it pure evil or untreated insanity? Let us know in the comments, and if you like real crime stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Thanks for watching.